Studio Puisto is a design studio based in Helsinki and is guided by sustainable principles for people and nature. The studio uses a holistic and tailored approach in architecture to support the well-being of users and produce high-quality designs. Today, we are joined by Willem van Bolderen, a founding partner of Studio Puisto, to chat about injecting sustainability in the hospitality industry. So happy to have you here.
Thanks, nice for being here and nice to talk to you.
The pleasure is ours. So will you first tell us about your background and about the firm as well?
Yeah, so my name is Willem van Bolderen. I'm an architect by training, actually originally from the Netherlands, but moved to Finland like a long time ago. I started my studies in Delft, University of Technology, then I did my master's at Aalto University here in Helsinki, and still here. In 2014 we started Studio Puisto Architects. We all worked, we're in total with 5 partners, and we all worked in different firms, and we felt that although it was nice to work for these firms, that the principles that we had in common in a way that they were not met by the companies that we worked for. So that's how we then started our own firm. And since then we've grown into an office that currently has 28 employees. We focus on hospitality, so that's also something that we grew into over the years. So that's not what we started out with in 2014, but it's something that we've developed into. And now we're here, 2023, with projects not only in Scandinavia, but in Asia, in Central Europe, US as well. So we've turned from a local firm into a firm that is working around the world, but we're still proudly Nordic as such. So we are rooted in Helsinki, in Scandinavia. And excited to think as to where does it go in the coming 10, 15 years. So it's nice to look backwards, but it's also nice to look forward.
Yeah, it's amazing. How would you describe the design approach?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the design approach can mean many things. But for us, it's the context that matters, and then of course also the user that will be there, or that is kind of commissioning the project. But if you think of hospitality, there's the client, of course, that owns the hotel, operates the hotel, for example. But then there's of course also the guests that will actually travel to these destinations or to these locations, and that's of course our primary guest or person where we design for. And if you travel, for example, in your case, you're in Jakarta, Indonesia, or then here in Helsinki, Finland, you travel there because you want to explore the culture, you want to explore the environment, learn from the local food traditions, for example. And the buildings or architecture can help with that discovery. So it's not the primary object for traveling, but it can help as a means to kind of discovering the local culture, the local environment. So we really see our projects as a way to help explore, experience, but also to surprise and to stimulate in a way. So how can our design strengthen the experience of the end guest?
That's cool. Yeah, I do agree. That's the purpose of architecture, that can enhance our experiences and also become a bridge to local culture, local people. So it's amazing to see it happening.
Yeah, and I think that's on several levels. So of course the most rudimental level is that, for example, in Finland at the moment it's winter time. Here it's -10, so it's nice to have buildings to keep you warm, and so it's kind of a warm jacket in a way, like the building. So it helps you to explore the winter, but it can also open up a window to a certain view, or elevate you above the ground and actually give a different perspective on the surroundings. Or in some cases, some of our projects are actually floating, so it gives a perspective that you otherwise wouldn't have if we're standing on our legs in the forest. So the building, it can kind of protect you from a hostile environment, but it can also change the perspective on that environment, so you can explore the surroundings better. And I think one other level, and that's in specific for hospitality, is that, for example, if you travel to a hotel that is especially focused on sustainability, and it would, for example, minimize the footprint on the physical level, or then it uses renewable energy sources to power itself. Those are things that can inspire the guests when they stay there, so they can discover something new that they maybe otherwise wouldn't have had at home, or then realize that, for example, the Arctic environment is very sensitive and the building deals with that sensitivity in a certain way. Those are things that we can then learn for or be inspired by, and actually when we return back home after our trip, things that we could implement in our daily life as well. So I think that's a third level where the building doesn't only change the perspective or it protects you from the cold or the heat, but it can also inspire you to make kind of changes later on in your life or in your living premises. That can bring a bit of that holiday or a bit of that knowledge that you gather during your trip home, and hopefully make a big impact.
That's really cool. How do you think is the best way to frame sustainability within the space, within design and hospitality?
Yeah, that's so. Like within the office, we always talk about multiple pillars of sustainability, and of course, ecology, so the choice of materials, the footprint of the material, is it renewable or not? That's kind of the typical trait that people expect the architect to take care of. And of course, it's very important part of it. So that's the classical sustainability in construction, let's say. But then we also have other pillars, and that's, for example, geography. So where are you located? Where is this project going to happen? Does it have to happen there, and in which scale? What impact does it have? So, like, what is the impact on the environment around it of the building? So not only measured in CO2, but also measured as a impact on the ecosystem surrounding the project. Then another important part is of course the social impact or social sustainability. Is that, especially when we talk about hospitality, it's where, for example, people from different cultures meet. So if you travel to a foreign country, you work with staff that is local or with other guests that come from yet another part of the world. And how can a building help meet those different backgrounds so we can learn from each other, that we can be inspired by each other? So in a way, social sustainability. Then there's ecological sustainability, as I early on described, which is about the choice of materials, building technology, building construction, operational emissions, etc. But then we have the fourth pillar, which is actually economic sustainability, and this is often seen as kind of a bad thing, maybe, like, but businesses that run well, like a hotel that does well, is able to take care of its employees, it's able to take care of the community that it's based in, but it's also able to inspire others to go the same way. So that's important for us as well, is to help our client economically succeed, so it's able to take care of all the other aspects of sustainability. So and ESG, for example, so investments in sustainably sound properties is a movement that is actually a bit bigger now in the real estate market, where you can see that happening everywhere, that we're working towards more responsible, greener investments, greener properties, and hopefully in a way motivate others to do the same thing.
What have you seen to be the challenges in fostering sustainable hospitality, and how have you tried to overcome them?
Yeah, that's a good question, and you can see that, for example, around the world, building code is different everywhere. So in some cases, building code might be quite strict. So the government forces you to, or in a way encourages you to make all kind of decisions in the right direction. And that's good for us architects, because in a way, meeting building codes or exceeding building codes helps making the right decisions. There's other parts of the world where we cannot use the building code in a way to make the right decisions. So then we have to convince our clients to make that investment to, for example, make a more durable building or a circular building or a building that will last longer. So and a lot of people, of course, or a lot of clients, when they start off with a project, are driven by the initial investment. So how much does it cost me to build this project? Whereas what we're trying to look at with the client and trying to have an open discussion about is not only what is the initial cost, but what is the cost over the lifespan of the building. And then you will see that more in-depth investments will actually pay themselves back. So a building that is better insulated or keeps the heat out better will have less operational costs, so that investment can be earned back. And it's about taking that discussion, showing the figures, and show that we have to look at the big picture and not only how can I make a quick buck out of a development. Now I have to say that since we specialize in hospitality and sustainability, we have the luck that all of our clients have an interest towards this already, so it's easier to take on that discussion. But we hope that in a way this becomes more industry-wide, that we don't only look at the first few years of a property, but think of it in its full lifespan. So what is going to happen with the building when it needs a renovation? What's going to happen with the building if it reaches end of life, or elements reaches end of life? Can we reuse, recycle, repurpose the building? And in a way that also represents value, and how can we show that already in the design stage, that think of the scenarios that will happen in the future.
Will you share with us about the Puisto resort and what you try to accomplish through the project?
Yeah, that's Puisto. That's a nice example, and actually quite a lot of projects of ours, they start with a master plan. So we look at a bigger region as a whole. And Puisto, like you're now referring to the building that we built there, but we actually started off with a bigger plan for the whole area. What are the qualities of the site? Actually, it used to be a popular tourist destination some 30, 40 years ago. And then slowly it's been kind of declining. And but the qualities still stay there. So there's natural beauty there. It's at the lakeside, beautiful forests. It's sandy. So it's quite exotic within Finland in a way, as a place to go to. But of course, if there's no place to stay, no place to kind of get food, then you only go for a hike and then you leave again. And the idea there was really like, so how can we retain the visitor for a longer period of time? And the first step is of course by through food. If you can eat somewhere, you will stay longer. And then of course, if you can sleep somewhere, you will stay even longer. And you can kind of also get a deeper understanding of the place where you're at. So if you're somewhere only for a few hours, let's say you go to Paris, and you only have a few hours, you might go to the top of the Eiffel Tower and back, and then go to the next destination. But if you're in Paris for a few days, you will start to discover, and not only the prime locations, but also kind of the neighborhoods that are maybe not on the first few pages of your travel guide, but are further down the Lonely Planet. And those are actually the much more interesting parts to discover. So by extending the stay, we hope that the guest kind of spends more time, more interest in its location. And the Puisto resort and building is trying to do just that. So through culinary, through activity, through wellness with the saunas, kind of to have the guests engage with its environment and have an interaction between the environment and the guest in a way, facilitating, as you might say, that dialogue between environment and guest.
That immersion that we're going for, right? And I think time sometimes love that.
Yeah, and actually a funny, so wellness in Finland often means sauna, and I guess that's one of the most known Finnish words around the world, sauna. And but the nice thing from a sauna is that because you have to get undressed, you go into a room that is in a way uncomfortably hot, and then you go into a lake that is uncomfortably cold, and it makes you vulnerable as a guest, and vulnerable towards the other people that are using the facilities, but also vulnerable to the environment. But I think that's the perfect way to, like, when we are vulnerable, we are open, and we are more open for opinions of others, for discussions, and you often see that in a sauna you have really interesting talks with the people that are also there, because we all, in a way, we're not in a suit with a tie, hiding behind our image. We all, in a way, like in our swimming gear or naked. It depends a little bit on the sauna, and it makes us vulnerable, and it's a really good start for that discussion. And I think that's between us humans, but that in a way also works for the environment. So jumping in the lake that is cold, it's uncomfortable, but at the same time it's rewarding. And I think those are kind of the elements that we are trying to find in our architecture as well. Contrast between warm and cold, contrast between big and small, dark and light. And because it opens up our senses, our eyes, our ears, our nose, and like, yeah, immerses us into that experience. And that's also one of the reasons why we specialized in hospitality. Is we were a general architecture office when we started in 2014, but we felt that in hospitality we can really find that sense of contrast and really curate the whole experience from the beginning till the end. Whereas in housing, you can do that less so, or in office environments, for example, working environments. And in hospitality, we can really, because we all travel for the experience, right? We don't travel for the amount of square meters that you have in your hotel room. Well, maybe some do, but like, so the curation of that experience and what does that mean? It's really at the heart of what we're trying to do and trying to achieve.
That's super cool. So lastly, architecture and design spark innovations in the business of hospitality and tourism, and how do you foresee the future of it growing?
Yeah, actually, I think for that we have to look a little bit back on what happened over the last few years, and I guess we all experienced it differently because, like, and I'm talking about the COVID pandemic that hit us all. And it has changed the way we traveled, and like to kind of realize what we need in life, and also the hospitality industry. Like, although we're trying to do it sustainably, if we honestly look at the travel industry, it's not the most sustainable business that there is, because it requires a lot of flying, it requires a lot of travel. And no matter how green the building or how renewable the building, to compensate for that flight that you just made, it's very hard. So we have to look at the whole picture. And COVID, in a way, I think it helped us with that, because where we were maybe used to, like, now I'm talking from a Helsinki or European perspective, but people might have gone for a city trip to Barcelona to do some shopping, or then they would go somewhere else for a beach holiday and maybe one exotic holiday as well. So it required a lot of short, quick trips that maybe weren't as substantial as you would like them to be. And where I hope hospitality will develop to is like a more profound travel, where we travel less, but we travel better. We stay at one location longer, where we can learn more, engage more, interact more, and then it's not only about beach and drinks, but it's about understanding the culture, learning from it, but maybe also giving something back. So engaging with the other guests and kind of learning from each other. So longer, more profound travel, and then in combination with more local travel. So Indonesia or Finland has a lot to offer. There's beautiful sites, really like very close by that you could reach by bike or by bus or by car. And if we want to disconnect from our daily life and go somewhere else, you don't have to travel half the world. You can do that local, close by as well. So I think a combination of very local travel in combination with more profound, longer travel, but in a controlled, not too often manner. I think that's where we have to go, because we travel the world because we love the world and Earth. If we don't keep our end of the bargain and try to reduce emissions, we are ruining our planet, and there will be nothing to travel to in the not too distant future. So I think we have a responsibility that if we want tourism to be there in 50, 100, 150 years for our kids, we have to think of how we do it.
Yeah, and sometimes traveling also instills back our love for nature, and it's very possible to do that, especially when you said it's about curating experiences and making longer travel. So that's where the future should be for hospitality. And
yeah, and this also requires a lot from the operators. For example, if you think that, like, what does your hotel typically offer you? It's a bed, it's a room, it's a bathroom, it's dinner. But maybe we should get more creative and think that, okay, what else do we offer? Cooking classes, or is it more like a whole theme around, like a 2-week theme around a certain topic that you or me can be interested in? It could be kind of an architecture 2 weeks in Indonesia, for example, and what would that then mean? And who would organize this, and how can that be done? But then, so around a certain topic, specific travel, so we would learn something, engage with, for example, colleagues or other like-minded people. And I think that's not explored enough. We've been kind of lazy so far, and I think, yeah, we cannot waste more time. And COVID kind of has accelerated this. So it's been, of course, terrible as a pandemic. It's hurt a lot of people, but I think it also at the same time opened our eyes that are the ways we're doing things at the moment, are they the correct things? Or is this a nice opportunity to kind of change how we travel, how we build, how we live, and what would the future then look like?
a great reminder that architecture and design can be a bridge for that. So lovely. Thank you so much today.
Yeah. Buildings outlive us, so that's like the buildings that we built will be dead and they will still be standing. So we have a responsibility also for when they're still around and we are not around anymore. So like, it would be nice if the next generation is happy with what we left them, rather than like shit, more concrete everywhere.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.